What have we got? Let's have some GGG. 3 of those.
Indonesia 193.
Spicy stuff. Oh, this is the stuff with the printed
Yeah, the sporterized M193 by the printing 223 Remington on it and taking machining off the
bit of Frontier, which also apparently people go, this just explodes randomly.
Yeah.
And some Fiocchi. That should be a nice selection, you think?
Yeah.
And Russian Barnell, just as a control, because apparently this is made for it. Alright, let's start with this. Well, you get the idea.
Smells like war crimes.
It gets right in your face. This stuff is shoots fine, but it goes where it eats. Alright. See you on the other side. Well, what do you know? The internet lied. Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. Well, as you can see, I am still in one piece, and the rifle functioned perfectly fine despite the sort of cocktail of brass-cased ammo. Now, you're going to say, yeah, but that was only one magazine. Well, if you want to see the Brutality matches of 2022, Ian and I shared it with for Link's Brutality with S&B ammunition, and Finnish Brutality, it was running with GGG ammunition, and the only problem I had was one broken firing pin. Otherwise it worked absolutely fine. This is a full F1 version, so it is full military configuration. Before I had it chopped semi-auto, I also fired it quite a lot in full auto with brass ammo because it's cheaper and more available. Also never had a problem with with the functioning. Actually, ironically, the only problem I've had concerning feeding with the Barnell. Occasionally one doesn't present quite well, just quite right, and it gets smashed into the feed corridor and the bullet telescopes inside the case. That's a feeding issue, probably just a bad mag. So why am I doing this comparison? Well, because there is a myth that persists that the FAMAS cannot or will not function with brass-cased ammo, and it was conceived from the ground up to only use steel cased ammunition. And I hope once and for all to get rid of that. I doubt I will succeed because that's the way of the internet myths, but that's where it is. However, where does the myth come from? As with all good myths and legends, they are based somewhere on a little grain of truth, and this is what we're going to try, well, I am going to try and explain today. So for that we have to go all the way back to the design period of the rifle. There's about a 10-year design period, and during that time this new intermediate cartridge of choice is the American style 5.56, so that is with the M193 projectile, 55 grain. And to stabilize that you need a barrel with a twist rate of 1 in 12, same as the M16A1, and also the same as in the SIG 540, which is briefly in service in France before this one. So 5.56 is being produced by the millions in France prior to the introduction of the FAMAS. And you know, when a new rifle comes, you need to be ready with the ammunition. It doesn't come out at the same time. For mainly economic reasons, it's decided to use steel cases for the FAMAS. Yeah, steel cases are cheaper. You need copper for brass cases, and copper is expensive. You do see written that the steel cases are more reliable in the FAMAS because the lacquered steel cases don't stick as much in the fluted chamber, which is essential for a good functioning of this delayed blowback. Yeah, that's well and good, but I've got experience with the AA-52 and also with the Sturmgewehr 57. They both have a delayed blowback system and they function fine with brass cases. They're in 7.5, but that doesn't matter. The system doesn't care what material is used in the case. Anyway, when we come to October of 18? I'm getting used to muzzle loads. 1980, NATO chooses the 5.56 SS109 projectile with the SS109 projectile, 62 grain as the standard. And unfortunately, that's not stabilized in a 1 in 12 barrel. But France says, oh, we don't care, we're not part of NATO, and we've got plenty of domestic ammo production, so who cares? And anyway, we've just launched our production with our 1 in 12 barrels. We're not changing anything, so no problem, right? Concerning the French production of the 223 5.56, we have the F1, first type of cartridge, then we have F2, F3. They all have the M193 projectile, 55 grain. They just tweak some changes with the core materials, the jacketing, coatings, and etc. But later there comes an F4 version, which is the NATO compatible version. And why is France producing this the SS109 projectile 5.56? Well, among others, they've got 10,000 FAMAS G2, which have arrived in 1995 for the naval forces and naval fusiliers. That has a 1 in 9 barrel, twist barrel, so that can stabilize both projectiles. There's also the AMD 5.56 for the gendarmerie, so that is a Mini 14 license build. There's also the SIG 5.51, 5.52 for special forces, all sorts of other more modern rifles than the FAMAS F1, and also, of course, they have the Mini-Me to feed. So now we come to the fun times of the late 90s. First of all, we have the closure of the major ammunition plant du Mans, then closely followed by the closure of GIAT Manurin Consortium. So this is largely so-called economic reasons, but basically it's political showcasing. Consequence is that France immediately loses all capability to produce its own ammunition for the armed forces. But they said, that's no problem, we'll just buy it off the shelf. Now, for the SS109 NATO cartridges, that's not a problem. It's being used everywhere. No problem for procuring that. But what about the 55 grain, so the M193? Also, essentially no one in the Western world is producing steel-cased ammo anymore, so it's going to have to be brass. So that, as such, is not a problem. As I said, the system doesn't care. But what happened was that in the early procurement phases, there were a couple of batches from various manufacturers that had brass cases where the case wall was too thin, which perhaps wouldn't be a problem in a in a firearm with a conventional solid chamber, let's say, but it is a problem with a fluted chamber, because if the brass is too thin, it's going to expand into the flutes, and scenario one is just going to stay there and be stuck, or it's going to be extracted, and as it does so, it's going to shave brass from the case, and so you get ejection, plus you get brass filings in your face. Really, really unpleasant. Here is an example someone sent of a LC, so Lake City, US production one, which, yeah, you can see what it looks like. So that's going to cause a lot of problems. And of course, that was a massive scandal. Now, scandal though it was, the problem really wasn't that much of an issue. You just need to find manufacturers that stick to the specs, and then you've got quality ammunition, and the problem goes away. So that is essentially the grain of truth in the legend of the function of the FAMAS with brass and steel cases. But the fact remains that if France had maintained its cartridge manufacturing capabilities, this would never have happened. Interesting, when I sort of did a shout out on various forums about experiences, well, the origins of this legend within France, there was sort of people who served at different times. So the old Cold War warriors, they said, yeah, we always used, I've never seen brass cased ammo, and then some people probably towards the end of the service life of the FAMAS who said they'd never seen steel cased ammo. So yeah, it was interesting. As to the accuracy of the FAMAS with the NATO ball cartridge, well, obviously it's not very good because the twist rate is not adapted to it. Apparently, past 50 meters, it starts to tumble. This is something I want to check myself. Now, unfortunately, I cannot have access to NATO ball because Switzerland doesn't like steel cord ammo. So it's going to be various commercial equivalents. As long as the projectile weight matches up, it doesn't matter. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting test. Before I go, one other interesting little nugget concerning the FAMAS is that there was the very late valorisé version of the FAMAS, which was a sort of a optimized thing. Okay, yeah, this is an acquired taste, but the valorisé is something else. Anyway, it was something that fell out of the Félin future weapons program, and that has a barrel with a twist of 1 in 9, so that was also good for both weights of projectile. But the interesting thing is that when they were making these, they didn't have the barrel making capabilities anymore because Giat had shut. So in fact, the barrels made for those were made by Beretta. So there we go. This is probably my vain attempt at trying to dispel this myth, but maybe it'll sink in. Anyway, for those of you who want to see this functioning more with brass ammunition, check out the Finnish Brutality and Lynx Brutality 2022, I think it was. No problem whatsoever. The whole ammunition scandal is a fascinating subject in itself, and we still don't really know all the details. Somewhat classified and clouded in political wrangling, but yeah, this is not made for any particular case of ammunition, and it functions fine with both. And it's not accurate when it's not fed the right type of projectile. No surprise there. There we go. The whole entire episode in one sentence. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your support, whatever platform you wish to follow us on. And if you're watching this close to the release date, I still think it's acceptable to wish you a happy 2024. So see you either here in the workshop next time or out on the range. Bye.